Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and this is my review of the final trailer of Season 3 of Star Trek Picard, which some people who claim to have seen it say that it's totally different from the first two seasons, that it's finally what it should have been, it's a TNG reunion. Nothing would please me more than if it was true, because I grew up on TNG, it's one of my favorite shows of all time, so nothing will make me happier than to see a proper sequel to it, a proper continuation or a conclusion. And obviously we are getting most of the original characters back, minus Data, who they killed off again after bringing him back in season 1. We do see his twin brother Lore, which might be interesting. We also see Moriarty, which might be interesting. Wouldn't Moriarty be super pissed at Picard, who got himself a new robot body, and yet left him to rot in a simulation forever? Despite all the new technologies like the mobile emitter and the synthetic bodies and all of that, and yet Moriarty was still stuck in the simulation. So I kind of wish Moriarty would have been the main villain, because he has every reason to be pissed off in a way that we can understand and sympathize with, which would make him a more complex villain. But I suspect he's only going to have one scene or maybe a few scenes in one episode, and that's it. Maybe they recruit him to help defeat Lore because he was originally designed by the Enterprise D computer to be able to defeat Data, so maybe he would also be able to defeat Lore. But the main villain of the season, at least according to the trailer, seems to be this new character of this female villain who is totally unknown, and she seems to be over the top cartoonishly evil for no reason, with a Hitler haircut and black gloves and all of those things, which just makes it kind of look too silly, like a parody movie, like Dr. Evil kind of villain. So that makes me kind of worried, because it just seems kind of too silly if they want us to take it seriously, and yet it's cartoonishly over the top. And also villains in general are much more interesting when they are complex, when we can get their point of view as well. But if it's just totally evil villain for no reason, just a crazy person wanting to kill everyone and you can only defeat them by violence, then it's always less interesting. It's one-dimensional. And one of the things that was good about the Star Trek shows is that often we had antagonists, not really villains, and you can negotiate with them to reach a compromise and all of that stuff. So it was always more intellectual compared to just one-dimensional villain just wanting to blow everything up. So that's one of the things that worry me about all of this, and just the fact that it just looks goofy looking, so it has the danger of being kind of unintentional comedy in my opinion. But maybe it will make it more fun, so I guess we'll wait and see. So if I was writing it, maybe I would make Moriarty the main villain, because at least we can understand why he wants vengeance, because it's totally understandable, because they really did screw him up when the technology did reach the level that they can bring him out, and yet they chose to keep him locked up in a simulation forever. That's kind of a fate similar to some of the stories in the Black Mirror show, when often people would get locked, their consciousness would be forever locked in some simulation, which is like a fate worse than hell. And I think even Moriarty would be more interesting villain compared to this female villain who is a totally new character, so why not bring back some of the villains who were left hanging from the previous shows, who never had a conclusion for, such as Scylla, for example. Why bring a totally new character who seems so over the top, just evil for no reason? And how come Lore aged? If his body was taken apart and left in storage, then it shouldn't really be aging. We can excuse it away by talking about the aging program, which was mentioned once. But we did see in those episodes when Data's head was severed from his body, the head didn't age in the 500 years it laid in the cave and all of that. So obviously if you're disconnected, then the aging program doesn't make you older. So how come Laura looks old now if he was disconnected? Will they explain it somehow? My guess is not. Maybe fans can fix it later with the deepfake technology to make him look younger. But the show obviously didn't bother to do that and probably will not even provide any explanation. He will just look old for no reason, even though he's an android. So all those little details make me worried. Another example is Worf's white hair, which I talked about previously, that it's kind of a continuity error, because when we saw really old Klingons in the past, in Deep Space Nine, we saw Klingons from the original series who were over 100 years old, and yet they were still in good shape, because Klingons don't age as quickly as humans, and so they had some white hair, but not totally white. And also in the final episode of TNG, when we saw Worf in the future, he didn't have totally white hair, so Worf isn't an old Klingon, so he shouldn't really look as old with the white hair. And some people will tell me that, oh, those small details are really insignificant and all of that, but to me it's just a clue. It shows me that they're not really fully understanding all the continuity and the history and all of that. And so that's why it makes me worried, because I suspect it's a clue that there will be many other things like that. Also, there's the scene in the beginning of the trailer when that other captain talks with Picard and Riker and jokes with them about the old times when they were blowing things up and crash landing their ship into stuff. And Picard later says, those were the days. That kind of shows a deep misunderstanding of what was good about TNG. Was it really good because of the action scenes, the explosions, the battles, which were really rare in TNG? That's not why that show was good. It was the stories, it was the characters, it was the science fiction ideas, it was the enlightened future of humanity which they showed us, and all of those good things. That's what we liked in that show, not the explosions and the action. That's not what made it good. So those lines in the trailer makes me feel like they're deeply misunderstanding what they think the fans want from this. And so that also makes me really worried. And also the fact that everything is so dark and grim looking, just like the previous seasons of this show, in all the sets, even in the Starfleet ships, and we finally have some proper Starfleet ships. So why are their interior still so dark and grim looking? It's even darker than the Borg ships looked like on the inside back in TNG. Like even the villain ships in TNG were more brightly lit on the inside compared to the Starfleet ships of this new show. So that shows me the atmosphere is still kind of nihilistic and all of that, like in all the recent Star Trek shows. And so that also makes me worried. At least we do have some shots of proper looking ships and star bases. So it does look better, but it still has that new Trek feeling that everything must be dark and edgy. And we see Raffi is again a junkie, apparently injecting some drugs through her eyeballs or something. So can they cure that in the 25th century? I remember even back in season 1 of TNG, Dr. Crusher said they can now easily cure people from addiction. She wanted to do that to help that planet, which Picard didn't let her to. Maybe he thought that planet will be better off learning the lesson the hard way by going through the withdrawal symptoms naturally, and didn't want to get involved. And the Crusher said she can easily relieve it, she can easily make it easier and all of that. And so how come in the 25th century people are still struggling with drug addictions and all of that with the medical technology? At least they kind of show some exotic form of drugs and not, just alcohol and smoking like she was in the previous seasons. And this character really annoys me. I mean, if she was an alien, maybe it could be more acceptable. Like if she was a Klingon character, then maybe all her nasty behavior, all her aggressiveness can be attributed to her Klingon heritage. But the fact that she's a human and behaving like that in the enlightened future and in the 25th century, and they cannot cure her addictions, and she constantly gets addicted to something, that is starting to get really annoying too much. Like maybe they will finally resolve all of that. We do have a scene of Worf headbutting her, so maybe he will slap her back into being a normal person again. And so I guess we'll wait and see. I'm really hoping the show will be good, but somehow I kind of doubt it based on the trailer. We seem to have the same kind of stuff as in the previous 2 seasons, and we have this new young human character who might turn out to be Picard's son, which is again kind of stereotypical soap opera stuff, just like Kirk discovered a son he didn't know about, and then now Picard will discover the son he didn't know about. So things we saw a million times before. There was an interesting line when Dr. Crusher tells Picard through a view screen, "Don't trust anyone." And that kind of reminds me of that scene from season 1 of TNG in the episode Conspiracy, when Picard was first warned about those conspiracy bugs that take over people and that he cannot trust anyone. And so, if they bring back those conspiracy bugs, that's another loose end which they never continued from TNG. I'll actually be really happy, because that episode is a guilty pleasure of mine. I remember I loved it as a kid, and it ended on a cliffhanger, and it always angered me that they never continued that storyline despite of that cliffhanger. And so if they actually continue that in some way, I'll personally be happy about it, even though that idea is not totally original. But at least it will conclude that little cliffhanger back from season 1 of TNG. So that line by Beverly, "You cannot trust anyone," is kind of similar to when Walker was talking with Picard back in season 1, warning him about the conspiracy in Starfleet. So that actually might be interesting, but I kind of doubt they will do that. because it seems to be another kind of female Shinzon situation with this lady who wants revenge against Starfleet for some reason, and so it just doesn't look that good, unfortunately. I'm really hoping I'm wrong. I'm really hoping the show will surprise me by being good for a change. Nothing will make me happier, and we'll wait and see in the very near future when we see the actual episode. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you think, and we can discuss all of this in the comments below. And I will see you all next time. Bye bye.